Saturday on a non-scheduled episode with my friend Kelly, the shipping nerd, uh, and we're going to talk about some of the stuff going on today. But I also want to mention just before we get started that tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be doing a special with Money Circus, our man on the ground in Georgia, and he's going to be commentating on the Hungarian elections. So I'll be able to get some of my old geopolitics gang together, hopefully tomorrow. We tried to do it today, but my phone isn't sending me my X notifications right now. They just give me a buzzer, and if I'm not physically touching it, I don't realize what's going on. Which is something Kelly experienced earlier today.
Yeah. Hey, that's okay. It'll all work out. Well, David, thanks for having me. And I got to say toot toot, right, for ships. Sorry.
Yep.
Bad joke. But yeah, bad joke. Thanks for having me on.
Yep.
And the name says it all. I am, I don't know how I became a shipping nerd, but I love it. Yeah. So if you want me to
touch on a number of subjects, so why don't we start with there?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm seeing, I have 2 points that I think are worth kind of conveying, especially in the beginning, is we are hearing a lot about the Tehran toll booth. But when you dig into that a little deeper, and you actually go right to the source, the people that would be paying it, the ship owners, and ship captains that are going through, we're not finding credible reports that it's actually being paid. You hear a lot of news stories about it, but I think that's one example, and I know we're going to get into it later too, of how Iran is using our own media to cloud what their domestic audience is seeing, but at the same time taking advantage of the divide that we have our internal politics here in the U.S. And I know you're Canadian, but and I'm a wannabe Canadian, but but you're just as up to date as on all the stuff in America. You're more up to date than most Americans. So I think Iran would really like there to be a toll booth, right? I think they may be trying to will it into existence, but we're just not. There's a couple really people I follow on X that get deep into shipping, and these guys are traders. They're energy traders, so they make their living off of knowing exactly how much it costs to move products, and they're just not saying it. But as far as the reporting on it that's happening, they're all anonymous sources. And it's one thing that bothers me so much lately about all the anonymous sources. It makes reporting false information so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just really not a lot of credibility. So we're not seeing that the toll is really being paid. It's possible that they speculate, like these traders, they don't talk to every single one, but it's possible that there has been a ship or two paying it. But in general, they're not.
Just answering a friend in the chat, former co-host of this show, once upon a time, Paul is in the chat right now. He's saying,
"Hi, Paul.
Spy Guy Canadian." You fully well know what I
am. Oh, what is he saying? I'm sorry, I didn't.
He's like, "You're Canadian, Dave? I didn't know that."
Oh, well, Paul, hi. We haven't met, but hey, glad you're here in the audience.
Yeah, we have 2 people watching, Paul and JP, who's usually my one guy who's listening and letting me know when the sound isn't on.
Nice. Well, I hope JP, let me know if you can't hear me, or our spy guy. Then the other important point that I think is it's a little misunderstood because it's counterintuitive. The ship owners are actually making a lot of money, with the exception of if you only own 1 or 2 ships and they're stuck in the Gulf, you're not making any money there. But if you own a couple hundred ships, even if you have a few stuck in, in the Gulf, there's the charter rates for around the whole world are up 2.5 to 4 or 5x as they usually are. So you're happy to let that one or two, or I mean, if you own a few hundred, even if it's 5, sitting there, not working, that's totally okay, because on every other delivery or charter, you're making, like I said, between 2.5 to 5x. And I know the president this morning tweeted, I think he posted a picture of all the tankers heading to the U.S. Gulf to, ship oil. So there is plenty, this is working out very well for many American oil and gas companies and the ship owners. The ship owners, let me be clear, aside from the ones that only, have all their products stuck in the tank in the Gulf not working, or the ones whose ships were actually targeted and hit, obviously. But they are certainly making a lot of money. And ship owners tend to make more money the more uncertainty there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I have no doubt. I saw the same effect I was mentioning before we came on, that a couple years ago, we had a big blizzard in Canada and a rail strike on top of it. So in order to get shipments moved out west via Campbell Soup, I was paying $15,000 for loads that were normally $4,000.
Yeah.
That's what happens. You can see demand just skyrocket, and you're just like, what? I need to move the truck, but I don't have a truck.
Yeah. And I mean, these are going to be like record breaking profits for some of these ship owners and like U.S. oil and gas, not just U.S. oil and gas companies, other, other companies that can get their product out. So it is certainly looking good. And then I think on the Strait of Hormuz, I know this morning 2 U.S. military vessels went through the strait, and the reporting that I'm seeing, again, I sometimes, when I see it so heavily reported, I'm like, who wants me to believe this? Right? That the reporting is saying that it was not coordinated with Iran. But I'm like, gosh, you're really pushing this narrative, Yeah. What? So, who wants me to believe this and why? But what better way to show the strait is passable than to pass a few American, U.S. naval vessels through there?
Yeah, pretty much. That's a good way to demonstrate, we're in control of the strait, not Iran, or we're working with them. Like, people have been saying, oh, the Iranians closed the strait. I mean, the Iranians closed the strait when they had the revolution in 1979. They've just been holding us hostage the entire time. Yeah. And then Trump just demonstrated we were being held hostage. We have 47 years to get away from being dependent on one key choke point. And someone was making money off of that deal.
Yeah. And I think you have reported on this too. And I would be interested if you have maybe a little more in-depth take on it. I believe it was you. But one of the things we know that as a result of the setup of the Iranians looked and said, man, we don't want to be like Saddam or Maduro, although it happened well before Maduro. If we're so centralized and the authority lies all in that top figure, if that top figure is taken out, it's easy for the whole house of cards to fall. So the Iranians, really through the IRGC, split power through, there's 31 provinces and I think like 13 regions, and it's all mosaic. But now those factions are trying to fill the power vacuum that was created. And it drives me nuts when people just say Iran and they use that interchangeably with the civilian government infrastructure, the IRGC, that has a whole parallel government structure, the mullahs, right? the clerics, they're all very different. So do you have more information on that or what?
Well, I was just reading Paul's message in the chat, and he said Saudi Arabia is looking to
Oh,
create a mega canal to avoid the strait.
yeah. Well,
We're
Saudi
seeing a bunch of
actually
new
already,
pipelines starting up in the Middle East, and of course, we already have all the domestic nuclear power that's coming online in the United States and Canada. So,
yeah. Well, and that's it. The strait, closing the strait can ever only be a temporary situation because the world will just find ways around it. You know, if 20 million barrels, about approximately 20 million barrels, pass through there between oil and gas, a day, we've already backfilled 8 or 9 million of those. Just the Saudis backfilled like 7 in a matter of like a week. Right?
yeah.
And obviously we can produce more, and we are, right? And other producers like the Russian, the floating sanctioned oil from the Russians, even the Iranians, which is now on the larger international market. Although my reporting, or like what I'm seeing, is people are still pretty weary of buying from the Iranians, whereas the Russians, they're like, okay, it's not sanctioned. Like, we know what we're getting. We trust them a little more.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I do believe that with the Russians, Russians are very legalist people, and they are very contract ordered. They live by the word of the contract, which the Iranians experienced in the opening days of the war with America, when Russia said, yeah, technically, you didn't miss this line here that says we can ditch out on you, and we are. So, goodbye.
Yeah. That's the other thing. I think between Venezuela and Iran, we've seen that the Chinese and Russians as allies might say, fair weather allies.
Yeah, definitely. China has been supporting the Iranians, from what I can tell. Russia, not so much. Russia is definitely more. Look, the deal with Russia in Venezuela is you stand out of the way and let us take care of this problem, and we won't cancel the weapons contracts. The Venezuelans own the Russians like $10 billion worth of weapons contracts, and none of those have been canceled from what I can tell. So that was kind of a deal, a handshake to say, look the other way while we do this, and we won't screw you on the arms deals.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what we're seeing, when Iranians are in the news or through their own state media, they're trying, like I think I had shared that tweet with you earlier today about all the things the Iranians are saying are their hard lines through the media, and but this is all being reported via media to media. Like, this is not coming from the Iranians sitting in Istanbul.
Well, they're not sitting in Istanbul. You mean Tehran?
I'm sorry. Well, whoever's at the negotiating table.
Yeah, they're in Islamabad right now, right?
Islamabad, excuse me. I don't. I'm sorry. Whoever's at the negotiating table, they aren't leaking this. And on a side note, I saw a really funny tweet. It was it was a list. Negotiating teams for Iran. It was PhD, 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 PhD. American, real estate developer, real estate lawyer, venture capitalist.
Yeah, no. Oh, and the fact that the last president, the one that died in the mysterious helicopter crash, guess where he got his PhD?
Oh, and that the bears ate.
Yeah, he was.
They said he was mauled by bears.
He got his PhD in Scotland in his doctorate in Sharia law in Scotland.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. But didn't they see their bodies were mauled by bears? That's why they couldn't find him, because they couldn't.
I don't know if there are bears really hanging around around. So I'd have to look into that.
So, do you think that was? Oh, sorry. What?
Oh, well, Paul was asking why he can't understand Russian not getting involved. I think Russia really really had a hard on to screw Iran because of Chechnya. The Iranians were big sponsors of the Chechen terrorist network, and this is Putin's chance to get back at them for that. That's why they really made this play, even though they were allies in Syria. I think that as soon as Syria was over and the new government kept the Russian base there, he was just like, "Screw you! Now I can get revenge for that 10-year civil war in my freaking country."
Interesting. I never made that
Yeah.
connection, but Putin seems to have a long memory.
Yeah, Russians also have long memories. They they got 800-year-old
Russia has-
civilization, and so they got a lot of beefs.
Yeah, they've got a whole grudge and beef list
Yeah.
a mile long.
That's
Some of
why
it going
our
back
families left Europe to get
centuries.
away from that kind of thing, and then we get involved in NATO, and we're now sucked right back in.
Yeah, that's funny. So I was hoping too we could discuss a little bit. I mean, I know we kind of touched on it, on these negotiations with Iran, and I don't know. I wanted part of the reason I wanted to do this with you is I wanted to ask your thoughts on a few things,
Yep.
on just how this is playing out with the larger city of London
Yes.
and those connections.
Well, I'll have a much better idea tomorrow when I listen to Tom Luongo's market report. So he's the kind of guy who tipped me off to all this stuff. But he's yeah. So in my mind, it's more the stuff I can perceive is really coming out of Washington D.C. Why were Tulsi and Vance not in the room during the old war stuff? All the narrative is that they're being kept out because of they're no longer influential. That's what people like the Bannerman's been pushing. But for me, I look at it as they're kept out of the room to protect them from the war.
Yeah.
From being connected to the war. And so JD can be swung in the last minute as the calm, cool, reasonable actor who might be on this sympathetic to Iran, even though he fought against their soldiers in Iraq.
Yeah, and that he was sent, or it was claimed that the Iranians wanted him, because they didn't trust Kushner and Witkoff, which I mean can kind of fool me once,
citizens of Israel. I wouldn't trust them if I were Iran.
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But I agree. I think Vance. I'm not sure about Tulsi Gabbard because I'm not, only because I haven't really been following that close. But I think this helps keep Vance pure, right? Not tainted. So if it works, he can run on it, right?
Yeah.
But if it falls apart, he can say, hey, I pushed back. Or even if it falls apart, he can position himself as, here's all the ways I tried to stop it. Look, I went to the negotiation. I was really involved with trying to settle it, is my take there.
I do think the Iranians want back into the system, and I think they're tired of being like, some of the reporting coming through. I was watching this guy yesterday. Me and JP did my yesterday's show, and this guy really flipped the script on a lot of different things. And me and JP are not too sure if he's the real deal or not. But he's an Australian activist who was very pro-Palestine, and he did 3 years in jail for getting into a fight with a couple of Jewish, and not like a physical fight, but he kind of O'Keefe media grouped it. So he got 3 years in jail, and he got out, and he got an invitation from Iranian government to go to Iran, and he started trying to speak on Iranian state media about Israel and Palestine. And every time he did it, they would shut him down. Their narrative is always the Saudis' fault in Iran.
Wait, can that walk me through that for a second? It's that the Iranians narrative. Is it Saudi's fault?
The Iranian narrative is about driving the Sunni Shia split. They don't talk about Israel at all on their media.
Huh. because they know
You know, they
better.
go around calling the lesser Satan, and they tell us that it's all about Israel, in their public media,
Yeah,
but on their domestic stuff, they say it's Saudi Arabia's fault.
interesting. But because at a certain point, getting back into the system, they've got to be looking at the world around them and saying, holy smokes, all these countries that are in the system, they're like we're now going to be decades behind in some ways. And it turns out maybe being legit makes you more money. And also just the cost of defending themselves. But by running these proxies, as opposed to just not having to fund that, is going to be
I mean, put money into your domestic economy, make your people rich and successful, instead of having this giant authoritarian police state that only serves a handful of the select few, which was the previous Ayatollah. So Trump is trying to get these guys to come into the 21st century. After being ruled by people who thought they were going to be, who wanted to bring back their country to the 15th century.
Yeah. And, I think for them too, what they're probably having to just spend just domestically to keep, to keep their people repressed, and it's hard when you start killing that many of your people in broad daylight. How long before the middle, the people that weren't political, didn't take a stand, how long before they turn on you? And then they've got, I think what's the Basij? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. The portion of the IRGC that's specifically for repressing their own people. Then to fund their terror proxy networks, right? That's a lot of money. And especially if they can be kind of pushed down easily. And then to fund all the domestic repression, and then be rich, right? Themselves, there's just not enough funds.
So the Iranian.
Oh no, go on.
Iran. He also says that everyone wants the Shah back. That is actually legit. And he says, and I look at that as not necessarily they want this particular Shah. It's more like all the people in Russia who long for communism because that was how everyone had a job back under communism. So I think it's more that kind of thing. They're nostalgic for the good old days of the Shah when, you could go out and wear swimsuits and stuff.
But they're not married to him as the person, their loyalties.
The idea of a constitutional monarchy, I think would be the way. So he might end up being restored, but it will be like a constitutional monarchy style thing, like the British.
Yeah. The constitutional monarchy works. It works in other Middle Eastern countries too, right? And the civilian infrastructure is already there. It's in place. Like I know they don't really get a lot of money and they don't necessarily have a lot of power, but it's not like that all has to be rebuilt. And from my understanding, and I could be wrong, but that civilian infrastructure is not the extreme religious, not the theocratic. It's of course,
mosque attendance is really down apparently in there. Like 75% of the mosques have had to close because no one's going to church anymore.
And women just stopped wearing the hijab, although. Because even Saudi has been loosening that up for a while, but under MBS. You can't say Saudi; it's really under MBS, which is a little different. And I often wonder how much influence does a guy like MBS coming in doing what he's doing in Saudi Arabia impact the Iranians? Because I learned this statistic the other day that like 70% of the Saudi population is under the age of 30. I don't know what Iran, I don't know how it breaks down there. But the young people, they're a majority, and they're not going to put up with. They're just like the younger Iranians that are tech savvy, that know their ways around the internet blocks and everything. They're not going to put up with it, especially when their neighbors no longer do.
Yeah. So yeah.
Did that guy say anything else?
Yeah, he got into really bizarre stuff. He's like, he's like, Bibi Netanyahu was not going to Washington to encourage this war. He was trying to stop it. And and I watched a video later of his channel on Trump, because he said the Israelis were against assassinating Soleimani. And the video of Trump is at some fundraiser or speech or saying, yeah, when I wanted to go kill this, we tracked down. We worked with Israel to track down Soleimani, and when we came to time to killing him, they balked and said no. They didn't want to didn't want us to kill him. And I'm like, and Trump's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I turned to my general. Can we still do it without the Israelis? And they're like, of course, sir. We can totally airstrike them. I'm like, and so he's like, airstrike the guy. And it was just sort of like, we know definitely for fact ISIS was was working with the Mossad and CIA. And we have definitely confirmation.
I'm not up on all
that. There's a colonel who sometimes shows up on shows, and he talks about he'll go on Megyn Kelly, for example, so he's kind of legit, and he'll talk about how during the war with ISIS, they had to set up a deconfliction line with CIA-backed rebels, because the Defense Department rebels were often fighting each other.
That's interesting.
So
yeah, I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not as up on all this stuff with Israel. Not that I just kind of, I don't know enough to.
Oh yeah, and like Israel is a special place. We have friends who are Israelis, and it's okay for that. It's just like their politics are really complicated, and as soon as Bibi's out of the way, this guy says that Bibi's wife, the one who has the 20 bottle a week champagne habit, is actually working for the CIA.
So that's part of the reason I didn't dig in is it seems like even from people that I, like even our friends that, spent time in Israel and everything, it seems like Bibi is a very divisive figure. Yeah. And I don't know enough, but my God, it seems like that man alone can, just mentioning his name. I don't know if he's like a Trump here. Some people have TDS. They have, there's that, the against him, and some people have it for Trump. They'll believe anything the man says. And I think Mark Halperin says it best. You cannot take what the man says literally, but you should take it seriously.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. My theory of like when he sent our friend Nicole freaked out on that tweet that he said about ending civilization, and I'm like, they call for the death of America every single time. We don't. We just let it roll off our shoulders. When Trump does the same thing to Iran, we're taking it seriously. And also, my theory was that he sent that tweet out knowing he had a deal.
Oh, okay. Was that right around the timing of the ceasefire?
Yeah. So the day of the ceasefire.
Okay.
He in the morning he sends out the tweet saying this country could just be destroyed tonight, and by 6:30 he's declaring a ceasefire. And I was like, and I was on my show that day saying he has a ceasefire already. He's just trolling people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's it. What we're seeing is a man negotiating. We don't normally see the sausage being made. Mm-hmm. Americans are just not used to that. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of us know and recognize that it's a dirty job, right? But we're like, and some people don't even realize it. Like, I think some people here believe that like everyone sits around at a table and is really respectful and it's like all above board, right? But that they don't. But when you're seeing the sausage get made, you're seeing the guts.
Mm.
You know, it's very different, and people just don't. To me, it's like the Mark's thing is absolutely spot on, right? Take him seriously, but not literally, but what I think Trump really fails is his messaging, or at least around this Iranian war. I think he can be very good at messaging, but I don't know what it is. You know, maybe we're going to find out down the road. I mean, maybe this is because the stakes are significantly higher, right? You know, and like you said, yeah, it's easy to be like, we're going to bomb them back to the Stone Age. You know, while you're in the room with these guys, and he might have looked at them and been like, oh, by the way, I'm going to do this. Like, because they're using their media the same way, right? So I just, yeah, I you know, again, we're seeing the sausage get made, and I think some people are having a really hard time, but it's not like this isn't how deals get done, right?
Yeah. People, most people deals are the real estate deal they have to do when they're buying a house, and trying to figure out how to buy their car. Those they're not used to constantly being in a deal making mode, and Trump is definitely very much.
And even even the real estate, the deal when you close on a house, most of those transactions are like, oh my God, we'll just pay you whatever you want right now. You're not, you know, working in commercial real estate. It's a very different. It's why residential real estate really frustrates me, because I'm like so emotional. You know, here's your number, and people should, in my opinion, they should not treat it so emotionally. Put your numbers down beforehand. You know, what can you afford? What can't you afford? Put that down, and then you got to be okay with it, right? And if the deal's lost, it's lost. That's it.
Yep.
You know, David, I got to just grab my coffee.
Okay. Yeah. So I have not watched the Joe Kent interview with the Duran. Maybe I haven't been watching the Duran mainly because I know they're biased, and so it's hard to go in like when you know someone what the person's already going to tell you, and they're not giving you new information. So that's not something I'm always trying to diversify my sources of information, and sometimes when you already know what the spin's going to be.
Yeah, I stopped watching them too. They're not providing new information, and it feels like their bias is even more exposed right now. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're so anti-American, just so.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. One of the reasons why I started back up my channel is we need to have like pro-Western voices out there. I get in a fight with Andre because of NATO, and I think NATO is somewhat maybe outlived its usefulness, but Poland's making its defense contributions and doing a good job there. I would be perfectly happy if the rest of Europe were doing that, but they're not.
Yeah. Well, that's it. They're not. And that's another thing I think Trump's not messaging very well on. You know, NATO. Let's just be honest. Let's have a frank conversation about the purpose they serve. A bunch of it is so the Europeans didn't go to war with each other, you know, so we could stop that. So there could be peace. That's not something we want to let go of, right? We don't want an armed Europe because we'll be back there again. But, you know, but it could get nuclear, and we don't want that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We don't want a nuclear Middle East, and we don't want real nuclear in Europe because, you know, they have 2,000 years of like hating each other for stuff that went on they once went to war over someone's ear. That's the thing.
Deeply. Which one was that?
Oh, I can't remember, but it was supposedly the British declared war, I think, on the French or the Spanish, over in one of their sailors' ears getting ripped off or something by the other guy, and that was the rumor or story that got spread around. I'd have to look it up on
Yeah.
Grok again. But yeah, there's just
Well,
like that is one of the reasons why the war supposedly started.
yeah, and France and Germany aren't just going to forget about the hundreds of years of border skirmishes. And, how many times has that area in Alsace-Lorraine been French, German? They're not just going to forget about that.
Yeah.
I mean, they still have disdain for each other at a certain level.
But as you were saying about Trump's messaging, I think confusion is the whole part of the process. Is you want to confuse and confound and keep people guessing, even your own side, because that's how intelligence operations work. The idea that you just have Donald Rumsfeld up on a podium every day telling you the official narrative and drumming up a whole bunch of war support just can't exist with the capabilities the United States currently has.
Well, 100%. Yeah. I just meant, like, I don't understand why Trump doesn't kind of say, well, hey guys, also remember, if we let go of NATO, we go back to a Europe fighting, like, and maybe he's not thinking about that, but I totally agree. This expectation or this idea, I know some of our friends on the left are like, he's not telling us what he wants and what he's doing. It's like, no, why would you play your hand? Like,
yeah,
the other side
play
doesn't.
Poker, guys. That's how this works. You watch some of those professional poker players tournament. I was watching one because I had to go into the automobile shop the other week. I have a leaking tire, and these guys these poker players are stone-faced, silent the entire time with their hands out, and then they just break out in smiles and laughs after the poker hand is completed. But
yeah, it's like, do you guys? But you know what? We go back to that, like, old style. The U.S. has to fight with one hand tied behind its back while it carries the rest of the load on its back, and the rules of engagement, like, you can't fire back with a weapon that's more powerful than than what they have. They have to shoot first. Like, it's like, do we want to win, guys?
Yeah. No, they didn't want to win. That was the problem. They wanted the grift of these endless wars to continue. And I will give Biden at least a little bit of credit, even though the Afghan pullout was a disaster.
Yeah.
He did get people out of there. And I do think it was him. I agree with Jen on that one.
That what?
That Biden was the reason. Yeah, it was handled badly. I think after that is when his decline really kicks in.
I see. Yeah. And they probably take more and more power away. Like, he's probably just starting to make less and less decisions.
Yeah.
As they go forward.
That might have been a reason why they could put him in the broom closet, because they were like, oh crap, see what he just did in Afghanistan. We can't have that guy running the world.
Yeah. And really it was for the whole world to see. Right? Yeah. So David, I have maybe another few minutes. Was there anything else we wanted to talk about? Or oh wait, did you see US CENTCOM posted a couple hours ago? That I'll just read it really quick. U.S. Central Command forces began setting conditions for clearing mines in the Strait of Hormuz April 11th as 2 U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyers conducted operations. USS Frank E. Peterson and USS Michael Murphy, DDG-112, transited the Strait of Hormuz and operated in the Arabian Gulf as part of a broader mission to ensure the strait is fully clear of sea mines previously laid by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. Today, we begin the process of establishing a new passage, and we will share this safe pathway with the marine industry soon to encourage the free flow of commerce, said Admiral Brad Cooper. The Strait of Hormuz is an international sea passage and an essential trade corridor that supports regional and global economic prosperity. Additional U.S. forces, including underwater drones, will join the clearance effort in the coming days. So, what's funny is I've heard a lot of people say that that even like some of the shipping experts think if it's mined, it's really it's not so bad. Like
Oh yeah,
it will be like if it's mined, it's like in the double digits number of mines.
yeah. No, it was individual commanders under the Mosaic operating under their own initiative, and there was
100%.
Yeah, it was not like
Yeah,
sort of
and
major
leadership. Yeah, and the leadership that's in Islamabad, right? That's where they're. Yeah, where they're negotiating. Can't believe I messed that up earlier. Sorry, but they might not even know. They're probably like, if you plus the peace of mind, right? Yes, U.S. naval assets went through there. We swept because I think it would be really bad if there is an attack, and this is something I've been thinking a lot about, given that mosaic and that structure. And the fact that you could blend in as a civilian to be launching one of these, they're saying they'll go out in a fishing boat and launch those unmanned vessels. Something I've been really thinking about. How can we ever really be sure? You probably can never really be sure
I think you guys got.
We'll be able to.
I think you guys got sonar and detection capabilities through space satellites to pretty much figure out where all the mines are at this point.
Oh, no, I'm saying going forward, like even once it's open, do we risk like a rogue IRGC commander?
That's always been a risk anywhere in any of these conflicts, that someone will do something stupid.
Like the Japanese soldiers that finally surrendered in 1974.
Yeah. No, what I've been concentrating this afternoon is the ongoing situation in Ireland. There's been a 4-day trucker revolt, and they're not playing around like the Canadian truckers did. They have almost all the highways and fuel depots blockaded. It's a combination of farmers and truck drivers.
Yes.
And they'll have like dump trucks with their dump all the way back like this, so it's hard to move. It's so bad, the government called in the army to try and clear them out. But the problem for the Irish is how big their army is. All told, with between their AC and Canadian Coast Guard, 8,000 men. Everything. If they
only
full reserve, it's only 8,000 people.
Wow.
They show. I was watching a video of like cops ordering the crowd to disperse. There's like 3 cops and 500 people. The cops are like, cops kind of like, if you don't disperse, we're going to charge you €1,000 fine and you could be in jail for 6 months. And the protester comes out, and what do we say to that? No, there's like 500 people versus 3 cops.
You know what? They push these farmers all across Europe to their wits' end. Mm-hmm. We need farmers. Don't piss those guys off.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, you're going to have to, maybe you can share some links about that.
Yeah.
But
I've only just got into it in the last hour, but there's definitely been, I'll definitely drop a link into our little chat saying what's going on. And like I said, tomorrow I'll be doing a special for 10 a.m. with Money Circus, and hopefully we did have one of my friends from that group, but he's now calling himself Professor. It's the Polish thing. Anyways, the good professor was in the chat yesterday. GAP is one of the guys. So,
okay. Well, I'll try to see if I can join tomorrow. You said at 10:30?
10 a.m. So we'll go for a couple hours probably.
10 a.m.
Yep. Because they're all one's in Poland and one's in Georgia. So.
Okay. Well, that would be really interesting. I'm looking forward. Do you have a prediction what happens there before we head out?
Orban just wins it again.
Okay. If you listen to your EU style news media. There's another media trying to will something into existence. This other guy winning. They act like Orban's not like that. The Polish or the, I'm sorry, that the Hungarians that they hate him. I'm like pretty sure he's got some support there.
Yeah, he won 60% the last time. Like, come on, guys. And again, he has some personal corruption stuff. They all do. But like, you're trying to wipe out Hungary.
Any Soviet.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But he was a kind of Gorbachev figure at the time, or a solidarity figure at that time. But yeah, he's like, if you don't learn anything, I know very little about Hungary, but what I do know comes from the 1848 revolution. And those guys are not screwing around. They want to be Hungarians for the rest of eternity. And stuff from Austro-Hungarian Empire. But yeah, those people are not going to give up their civilization, and you're not going to let you have trans people march through their street.
No. They might be some of the last savior of Europe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I look forward to getting the results, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for suggesting. Okay, anyways, that was us for this little broadcast for today. See you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., or see you in the reruns. This is Dave Marsh signing out to all the agents out there. And if you like this, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.